says 5 Boss.
It's
in it?
5 Bowers, is the owner of it, that's us.
Okay,
You know,
Bowers.
instead of Bowers, Bowers.
okay. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Under item 4.1, consider a two-lot land division request by certified survey map for the properties at 903 East James Street and 367 Bradley Avenue. Mark, you can start us off.
Sure. What you have in front of you is a proposed land redivision. Currently, there are 4 tax parcels that make up the former Dean Foods property, along with a residential house to the north on Bradley Avenue. The property was recently purchased, changed hands. They're looking to combine the tax parcels so that all of the business functions are on one property, and then the house operates as a separate parcel. This is in front of you because if it was in one subdivision, it would merely be a lot line adjustment. They could do it administratively, but because this is actually in 3 different subdivisions, state law requires that a subdivision may only be changed by a subdivision. So it breaks the exterior boundaries, so therefore it requires either a CSM, which is in front of you, or a subdivision plat, which is even more complicated. That's the simple version.
Oh, we decided this person.
If you have any questions, the applicants are here.
I have a question for Mark. Is this something that we've done recently? I can't ever recall having something like this.
Most parcels that want to do a combining and to reduce the number of lots typically are within the same subdivision, so that we just do those administratively, where people have a house that sits on 2 different tax parcels. We have several of those still left around town, but this one is a little unusual because it's actually in a subdivision, a CSM, and an unplatted. So by state law, it's 3 different subdivisions.
So I take it the answer to the question is no, we have not.
The only other one that would be, and it wasn't for this reason, would have been the Ford property a couple of years ago. That was in a Allenhurst subdivision, unplatted and partially.
Yeah.
But they were moving lot lines around. I think we ended up with equal number when we got done, but they didn't add any, but they didn't subtract any either.
So this isn't something that we need to worry about a precedent or anything being set. We're just following procedure, basically.
And it's a reduction in the number of lots, ultimately, or parcels. Currently, there are 4. They would end up with 2. So no, it's not precedent.
The one concern that was originally raised that we had was that the one lot, the residential, which is for residential use, would actually be, if you allowed it to be created, it would have actually taken a lot that was at 8,000 square feet and reduce it to 7,200, which would actually be reducing, if it was in the residential zoning district, a lot that would not be compliant. And so that, I think then there might have been some concerns. That lot is actually zoned business, the same business zoning. And so if something happened to that, if it ever changed use, it could never go back to residential. And it does meet the lot size for a commercial lot. And so I think that was maybe the only issue that could have set a precedent that we would have been concerned with if it was truly zoned residential. It's not, so it isn't compliant. That lot would be in compliant to the underlying zoning.
So if somebody ever wanted to zone it back to residential, it would be non-conforming?
It would be, it's already non-conforming in terms of width, but now if they wanted to rezone it back to residential, it'd be non-conforming for width and lot size. However, when you look at it, it seems like it would make sense to just incorporate, it almost squares off the commercial, and that's probably why it was, the underlying zoning is commercial. But you're absolutely correct. If for some reason they wanted to sell it off as residential, and someone said they came in, now we would have created a lot that would have been a size that would have been compliant, and we are now allowing that it would no longer be compliant if it was being considered for rezoning.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, if somebody ever wanted to rezone it as residential, they couldn't because it'd be non-conforming.
I mean, the council could still approve it, but technically, I think the one why this recommendation was easier to make is because the zoning the underlying zoning would allow for it once it met the use that's allowed under that underlying zoning would have met the lot size. So I think we're assuming that it's not going to, that someone isn't going to come in and request the rezoning of that. If they are, it probably should have been talked about at the same time. And the comp plan, because it's also, rezoning would be inconsistent with the comp plan, so you'd have to come in, get a rezoning on the comp plan, you'd have to amend the comp plan and then proceed and get the rezoning. And from just the way it's set up, it seems like would be more conducive to keep it, it is zoned properly, it's just, and so that's why the staff was okay in this case, because the underlying zoning would allow for it once it's being used for its proper purpose. But as a residential lot, this approval, this would be taking, a residential lot, that lot requires 8,000 square feet, which existed, and would be bringing it down to 7,200 square feet.
Okay.
Alan?
Just a quick question. The lot line adjustment on the south side of the residential lot, Mark, that reflects actually the location of that fence, correct?
In the east side?
Well, the east side behind that steel building, but
Yes.
then on the south side between our building and the house, there's a fence there. I think the lot line is almost on that fence line.
Which is where the existing lot line is now, correct?
It is,
Yes.
okay. The thought is to redo our parking lot, the drainage, and between the house and the north side of our building, the drainage is terrible. The basement gets flooded in that Bradley Street home constantly, which we own through a different LLC. So we're kind of draining in our own backyard. I've talked to Dan Boss, he's got an idea that he hasn't basically brought to you guys yet, but we're just trying to see if it's feasible for him to do it, we can bring it in and you guys have it do it, or have you guys approve it, potentially. But we're between our building and the fence line is gonna be the actual storm sewer run out to Bradley Street, because everything drains to the north. That whole parking lot drains into the backyard of that Bradley Street residence, and between the buildings, well, in the spring runoff, when everything's frozen, it all dumps into that basement. So that's potentially one of the reasons why that lot line, we're gonna try to keep the storm sewer on the commercial property between the house and the commercial building. That's for that residential privacy in the backyard for that home. So, I don't know if that was any help in kind of getting the lay of the land up there, but that's kind of what the next step in our process is gonna be, to try and get a storm sewer run through there, so that parking lot and all the runoff from that area can head out to Bradley and connect to the storm sewer out there, so.
Those who didn't hear that on the television. So they're looking to put a storm sewer drain between the residential parcel and the commercial. So, and that would be, in fact, separate from the lot lines, be theoretically done with an easement. They're crossing the property line.
Be a utility easement.
It'd be a private utility easement, correct?
Okay. Are there any other questions from the commission?
I'd like to move to recommend to the Common Council the approval of the proposed two-lot CSM land redivision for the properties at 903 East Geneva Street and 367 Bradley Avenue as presented.
Is there a second to that motion?
I second that.
Been a motion, a second, any other discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. All right, item 5, public hearing review and possible recommendation of Kunis Country Ford. Under 5.1, public hearing on request to amend the existing conditional use permit at 1234 East Geneva Street to add an additional accessory building for in-vehicle sales or service land use within the business local zoning district within the wellhead protection overlay. Applicant is Kunis Country Ford. I'll open up the public hearing at this time. And Mark, you want to start us off?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What's in your packet is an application by the Kunis Ford Ownership Group to make a small change on their property within the existing paved parking lot and install a an accessory structure. I'll let the applicant describe exactly what it is, but it's a very small change on the property. What's proposed in front of you is basically no changes to any of the underlying conditional use permit requirements, but allowance for this accessory structure.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Yep, my name is Tom Thor. Address is 1234 East Geneva Street. So what we're looking to do is add a 30 by 30 pole building outside on our parking lot that's kind of behind Blackhawk Credit Union to allow for a facility for indoor photos to help with our process and to help do with weather constraints for shooting photos of our inventory. Just a 30 by 30 steel building. It'll match the color scheme of the existing building. But it'll pretty much be on that adjacent lot right behind us that's already paved. It goes directly right on the pavement, so no excavation or nothing required, so.
Anybody else in the public arena want to say anything for or against this project? I take it there is none. Any comments or questions from the commission? Staff have anything else to add to this?
The only thing, Mr. Mayor, would just be, as in the memo, is any of the underlying existing conditional use permit regulations stay in effect.
Well, if there's no other comments, then I will close the public hearing. Under 5.2, review and possible recommendation to the Common Council regarding a request to amend the existing conditional use permit providing for an outdoor display land use for the property at 1234 East Geneva Street to allow for additional accessory building for an in-vehicle sales or service land use within the business local zoning district within a wellhead protection overlay. Applicant is Greg Kunis. Does anyone care to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I would go ahead and make said motion, and also, as Mark had said, to keep all the other recommended conditions of approval.
Okay.
Second.
There's been a motion, a second?
Yes.
Yeah. Andy's got that all done already. Is there any other questions from the council or commission? If so, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 6, update on the building and zoning related matters. Building inspector report. T, you want to run us through the litany of things you've got on the paper? Or in the thing?
Yeah, I mean, if you guys have any specific questions, you can ask me, but, you got the Taco Bell and the Burger King. I'm sure you've seen them under construction. They're going there. They're just starting to put the shell up at, Burger King, and, Taco Bell's just about ready to pour their slab, so. We're still having some odor issues out at Strategic Materials. We're still working on that. Hasn't really gotten any better. Hopefully, they're still trying to work on things, but.
So you're there every day checking the smells and?
Yeah, pretty much every day I go over there. It's usually always downwind. You get a smell. The other day it was raining so hard there wasn't a smell, but I would say 90% of the time there's usually a smell, and I would say that probably most of the time it's a pretty strong smell. There's only been a couple times where I haven't written a citation, and even on those there's maybe a faint smell, but it's just not strong enough that I feel like it's worth,
Yeah.
but
what have they really done to curb this? Because this has been over a year.
Longer than that.
Probably longer than that.
yeah, I mean, they've kind of written us a list of some of the things that they've tried to do. I know that they've kind of cleaned some of the building out. I know they've been trying to open certain doors, keep certain doors closed. They've kind of done stuff with their misting system in the inside of the building. Changed anything else, but I know that they kind of wrote us a list of things that they've been trying to change. I know they're saying that they're trying to work on things. I haven't really noticed a difference when it comes to actually smelling out there. I mean, it pretty much, I think the bottom line is that it's more, there's more than just glass out there. A lot of it's actually garbage that they're trying to recycle through. So I think that they are trying. I just don't know if they're able to do what they want to do.
Well, I guess the question is, how long are we going to deal with this? I mean,
Can I answer that? I don't.
That will be discussed in closed session on next Tuesday evening.
oh, okay. That's right, you told me that the other day. Amongst a list of more other items too. Okay. Jeff?
I have a question. At 1108 Cottonwood Street,
Yeah.
did they had to pull a permit for a fence, right?
Yeah, so I'm going to be writing them another letter. They did pull a permit. I put conditions on that permit, and I don't want to, I guess they failed to either see my approvals on it, but there were some restrictions on it, and they didn't listen to my restrictions. They actually have never called for a final, but I noticed that there was some stuff that wasn't right, so I have written them 2 letters. I'm actually going to write them 1 more letter to get them to tell me what they want to do with it, because there's a process. They're able to kind of do what they did, but they got to go through a process, and it's got to be approved by you guys. So they need to get a conditional use, and then they might need to move that fence back a couple feet towards the property and put some type of maintenance of landscaping, depending upon what you guys would require.
I guess I've never applied for a fence, permit. In that process, do they have to describe the fence?
Yeah, they describe the fence. They show me what it is, what they're doing, and so I actually, in like red letters, and I took their permit thing and showed them that where they had to be at 4 foot, because that lot's a little, it's different than most in that it has like 2 street yards, and so they can't have it 6 foot, according to our code. Which our code makes exceptions, but you have to go through the process in order to do that. They basically negated to do that. So I wrote them 1 letter, and they responded and asked if they could be grandfathered in, and I kind of responded and saying that that's not really how it works, that they have to apply through our process. And then I didn't get a response after that, and then so I need to send them another letter, which I will do this week.
So when they were putting the fence up, I mean, did they put it up rather quickly?
It went up in a day or
Yeah.
2 days. So yeah, I mean, I usually don't do a final inspection until somebody calls it in. But because of the location and where it's at, I drive by it every once in a while, and so like I noticed that they didn't do what my application said it could do.
Okay.
So that's why I wrote a letter, and I haven't talked to these people. It's only been through correspondence, through the mail. And the last letter that I wrote to them, they hadn't responded. So I'm going to write them another letter and tell them they need to respond by a certain date, or they could be fined or that type of a thing.
I just wanted to make sure that we weren't dropping the ball somewhere along our end. But it sounds like it's more of a matter of they just ignored what you said, so.
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
Is there any other questions on anything?
For me,
We got my other bigger thing is the Bergamot Brass Apartments. They're moving along pretty well. They've got the 3rd floor and the 2nd floor pretty much framed out. They've started the electric. They just got their state-approved plumbing, so they're going to be starting the plumbing. And it's moving along. It's going to be it's a pretty cool project. I'm kind of excited for it. So kind of has that 3rd Ward Milwaukee
yeah.
feel in it. It's going to be pretty neat.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.